The NFL draft is over, and it's finally time to start looking at the undrafted free agents that the Baltimore Ravens have signed, because almost every year, at least one makes the team. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about some of the undrafted free agents that the Baltimore Ravens have signed. Usually I do one video talking about all of them, but I think the Ravens already have around 20 undrafted free agents, so I'm going to split it up into two parts. This one is going to be probably the more exciting one, as I will be talking about the wide receivers, safeties, tight ends, and the running backs that the Baltimore Ravens have signed. I want to make sure I didn't miss any positions there. Yes, so I have watched all of them, and I have given grades and given my predictions on what I think they can do with the Ravens. Now, before I ever talk about any of these players, I want to always specify I'm rooting for every single one of these players. Obviously, it's very difficult in the NFL, especially when it comes to making the 53-man roster. You know, if these guys can get on the practice squad, that is a great step, great building block. So if I say, hey, I think this guy's a practice squad player, do not take that as me insulting them. Take that as me saying, hey, I think the Ravens should keep this guy in the building and, you know, try and develop them so that, you know, one day they can eventually start. Think about the Ravens, the guys the Ravens have put on the practice squad that have ended up being very good, right? Geno Stone, Darius Washington recently. I believe Gus Edwards started on the practice squad as well. So all of these players, just because you get put on the practice squad, it's not necessarily a bad thing. With a lot of them, it's, hey, now you get in the work, now you get the playbook. If somebody goes down, it's next man up, right? You got to step up, you got to get in there. So let me know in the comment section down below your guys' thoughts and opinions. I am really excited about some of these players. I've won. The last player I talk about will be my favorite. I cannot wait to talk about him. So make sure to subscribe to see the next part, which will be talking about pass rushers, linebackers, offensive linemen, and such. But, you know, I think the Ravens did a really good job drafting, and I think I'm really excited to watch all of these practice squad hopefuls and even 53-man roster undrafted free agent hopefuls compete at rookie minicamp and throughout training camp. But let's start it off with the wide receivers. First wide receiver I want to talk about is Isaiah Washington out of Rutgers. He's 6'2", 206 pounds. Reported he ran about a 4.5, I think it was 4.53 40-yard dash at the pro day for Rutgers, was not invited to the combine. When I watched him, I thought, okay, this guy has good hands. And then I looked up and I was like, okay, he only had one drop last season, and he only had 2 drops in his entire collegiate career, which I believe was 5 years at Rutgers. And he, even though some of his highlights, and he's 6'2" and he has 4.5 speed, you may think like, oh, this guy's like a deep threat. He's a jump ball wide receiver on the sideline. I didn't necessarily get that from him. I saw more of an intermediate route runner that can go out there and make catches 10 to 15 yards down the field. I felt like that was his best game, and I think that reminds me of what the Ravens really like to do with Rashad Bateman, right? So, not saying he is Rashad Bateman. He's not the route runner that Bateman is, but he is a physical wide receiver that can go out there, get open, and make those difficult catches on, you know, second and long, third and long, where, you know, you're trying to get either a first down or at least get in better position to make a first down on the next play. Really liked his game. He's not a slot wide receiver with that size. He definitely isn't, but he's an outside wide receiver with good hands. You can throw it to him on the sideline. You know, not saying he's bad on the, you know, at the deep ball or anything like that, but I think intermediate seems to be his best strong suit. I think he's definitely an option for the practice squad because the Ravens like to keep a lot of practice squad players at the wide receiver position. So stay tuned to watch him. He does make some pretty good catches. Speaking of pretty good catches, the next player I want to talk about is Dayton Wade. A lot of people's probably favorite wide receiver in this undrafted free agency class, and the hopeful to make the 53-man roster. The Shamar Bridges of sorts, we can call him. Not because of the size. He is 5'9", 176 pounds. He did run a 4.4 40-yard dash, so that's always good news. But the reason why people are going to love this guy, I wrote, my first line that I wrote when I watched him, I wrote Sports Center. And then I wrote Jamal Murray, big shot taker, big shot maker. This guy is going to go for the acrobatic catch. He is going to make the acrobatic catch. Also, shout out to Jamal Murray for that great shot against the Lakers. Sorry, Lakers fans. I know Josh was a Lakers fan, so sorry about that. But absolutely love this guy when the ball is in the air. The difficult part with him is, like, yes, he makes these unbelievable catches. He had a one-handed catch that was one of the best one-handed catches I've ever seen. He has two-handed catches on the sideline. He has a lot of like jumping backwards, two-handed, both feet down, falls backwards type of catches. Every possible acrobatic catch you could name, this guy made in his collegiate career at Ole Miss. So it's not like he's playing against nobodies. He's going out there against Georgia, making great plays. He's going out there against Alabama. He's going out there against Missouri. Some really quality defenses, and he's making them look silly with these acrobatic catches. Even as I'm saying that, he's not a 50-50 ball guy. He is a route runner. He is a route technician, and he has experience as a kick returner. So obviously, if he's going to find his way onto the 53, I think it'll be as the kick returner. Obviously, Dayton Hardy we brought in, but remember, the NFL changed the kickoff rules. So I think it's a lot more open this year than any other year in the history of the NFL in terms of finding a kick returner, right? Undrafted free agency guys, like maybe they just have a knack for the new rules. So I think if he's going to find his way on the 53, that would be it. So I think there is a chance. I think he'll definitely be a practice squad player, though. So very excited to watch him. Very excited to watch his highlights that he ends up putting out because, again, this guy he's a highlight machine. If you have not, go look up Dayton Wade, and you will find a lot of SportsCenter top 10 catches. Next up, wide receiver DAngelo Hardy out of North Carolina Central. Took me a little bit to find some stuff on this guy. It does typically when you're looking for those Division III level players, but he's 6'2", he's 197 pounds, and when I started watching him, I was like, wait a minute, I remember this game, because if you don't know, go check out the highlights from the Division III championship game last year because it was unbelievable. It was one of the best like college football games of all time. Like the game, like it was just big play after big play, and I was like, oh, I remember reading about this and watching the highlights of this game back when it did happen. But let's just talk about that game for him. He had a 94-yard touchdown, and he had a kick return touchdown. So that just shows like, hey, this guy's a big playmaker. When I watched him, the biggest thing that I saw was his vision after the catch. And, yes, he can get open. That's, not necessarily his game. I think his game is yak ability. And it's not necessarily Zay Flowers juke you out of your shoes. It's not necessarily Deebo Samuel, I'm going to, run over everybody and break all these arm tackles, which he can break arm tackles. What I, recognize is I think one of the best players in the NFL right now in terms of yak vision is, I think it's probably Travis Kelce. That's kind of the vibe you get when he catches the ball. He just has a very good sense of where all the defenders are and which angle he needs to take, whether it's cut it back across the field and get up the sideline, whether it's take it up the gut and split the safeties, whatever it is, he's a very good knack for finding that hole in the secondary. So, if you can get it to him over the middle of the field when he is open, he can definitely make a defense pay. He had 20 touchdowns last season, 58 in his career, and I think he had over 1,300 receiving yards last season. He stands out on the football field. He definitely has a chance to, make the practice squad. But again, kick returner. He has really good size, which I think could be a very beneficial thing in the new kick return rules, because if you break an arm tackle, you might be gone. So at his size, maybe the Ravens try out, a bigger kick returner. So definitely has a shot in the kick return game. Again, going to be competing with a couple of guys, but this guy's really entertaining to watch. I would look it up. DeAngelo Hardy out of NC Central. He's got good vision after the catch, and he's pretty good at tracking the ball in the air, which not a lot of receivers can do very well, but when the ball was in the air, he was very good at tracking it, finding the right spot to get there, and he has the size to go up there and moss some people. So good with the ball in the air, great after the catch in terms of his vision, and he has the speed to make defenses pay as well. So really do like DeAngelo Hardy. Final wide receiver is Taven Robinson out of Kentucky, 5'10", 191 pounds. Again, coming out of the SEC, so is coming against, top tier competition. He's a slot receiver. He's a slot receiver. He's a route runner. He is not an after the catch guy. He's not going to go up there and moss you. He's going to get open. and he's going to catch the football. And the benefit and the reason why the Baltimore Ravens, I think, brought him in was this was Devin Leary's guy. He has the chemistry with Devin Leary. They played with each other last year. And I think that is going to propel a lot of people to hear the name Taven Robinson and Devin Leary in rookie minicamp, because whenever you bring in a quarterback and his wide receiver, they're gonna try and make plays together, right? They're gonna know where the cut is happening, where they like the football. So do not be surprised if you hear Taven Robinson's name. And I think he's definitely a good practice squad guy, especially if you have a guy like Devin Leary, who was his collegiate quarterback, throwing him the football. But the Ravens don't have any too many slot wide receiver options, so having him on the practice squad I think would be really good, and just gives them another scout player when you're going up against all these other teams, right? The Ravens have the speed, they have the tall receivers already on the practice squad, but they don't really have a lot of slot receivers if you want to try and, go against the scout team for all these cornerbacks. So Taven Robinson, good option in my opinion for the practice squad, especially with that Devin Leary connection. Next up, we have tight end Riley Sharp out of Oregon State. We all knew there was going to be a tight end. The Ravens bring in a tight end every single year, and they typically don't make the 53-man roster. However, there's usually an undrafted free agent tight end that does play throughout the year, because the Ravens love undrafted free agent tight ends. That's probably their favorite position. Maybe outside of running back. They do love the running backs as well. But one thing that's really interesting about him is this guy's a project. He's 6'6", he's 248 pounds. He was a 4-year linebacker at Oregon State, and last year was his first year at tight end. So he has 1 year of a position under his belt. He's a project player. I think the Ravens will keep him on their practice squad. I think that kind of reminds me of what Brandon Stevens. Remember, he was a collegiate running back for 2 years at UCLA, transferred to safety at SMU. The Ravens drafted him and said, hey, you're actually going to be playing corner for us. How does that sound? And it took him a little while, but eventually it was like, hey, this guy just has the athleticism. I think Riley Sharp being a linebacker, he's going to have the physicality to play tight end. I think he's going to be good in the run blocking aspect. It's developing that route running. It's developing the hands. And I think you can absolutely do that when you have him on the practice squad. I love this practice squad pickup from Oregon State. Next up, we're going into the safeties. We've got two safeties here, both Maryland guys. First one, Jordan Toles out of Morgan State, Baltimore native, 6'1", 209 pounds. Not a lot of film on this guy, I will say. If you guys watch a lot of Morgan State football, you guys may be able to tell me a little bit more about the guy. But I do know he had a game-winning interception to beat Akron. They ran a corner route in the end zone. He was able to track the ball down, go up there, making the interception, I think, with a minute and 9 seconds left with the lead. So huge play right there. He had 66 tackles last year, including 3 interceptions, and was an Aeneas Williams Award finalist, which is the best defensive back from HBCUs in Division I college football. So definitely a good player. Always great to have not only just a Baltimore, Maryland native, but also having somebody that can play football the way that the Ravens want, which is big plays at the big moments. And he did that at Morgan State. I think that practice squad is definitely an option for this guy, because I think it'll be really difficult for him to beat out the next guy, safety Beau Brade out of Maryland. 6 feet tall, 203 pounds. I thought the Ravens were going to draft him. If you guys were watching my reactions, my instant reactions, I kept bringing up Beau Brade. I was like, Beau Brade is available. Like, this is the guy. I think I drafted him in a couple of mock drafts. I felt like he fit what the Ravens try and do really well. I scouted him before we even got to the UDFAs. So I was really excited that we ended up picking him up, obviously from Maryland. I looked up, I was like, hey, where was he supposed to go? Because I felt like I kept drafting him in mock drafts in the 4th or 5th round. And the NFL had him as a 4th round grade on the NFL Combine website. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like, when I watched him, I think I would most compare his game to more of a box safety player. because he, is aggressive at the line of scrimmage. You can blitz him. He is good in the run game. He attacks the football. Willing tackler, but he's also a playmaker. Good ball skills, can get you some interceptions. I think that if I was taking one player to make the 53-man roster as a UDFA, Beau Brade is going to be my selection. I think him and Sanusi Kane, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Waiting to see some interviews with him to make sure I get the pronunciation right. But I think him and Sanusi and Ardarius Washington are going to be battling it out for 2 spots. But, another thing just to mention briefly, I'll talk about it later, probably in some videos, but with the new kickoff rules, how will the Baltimore Ravens and how will all these NFL teams put out their gunners, right? It's no longer just about speed. You have to be able to block shed. You have to be able to tackle off of a block. So I think that safety is probably going to be the option for a lot of teams at a lot of these kick coverage spots because, you're probably going to get some D linemen. You're probably going to get some safeties. It'll be more difficult to put out wide receivers because it's no longer about that athleticism getting down the field. It's more about being able to shed that one quick block and making that tackle, which safeties are more used to. So, there could be 5 safeties on the Ravens roster. There could be 6 safeties. It's really unknown, but I think Beau Brade has a great chance to make the 53-man roster, especially because of those new kickoff rules. And I'm a big fan of his game. So I really thought the Ravens were going to draft him. So picking him up, I'm really happy with. The final player I'm going to be talking about, again, this is part 1. Talk about the rest of the positions. Probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. I don't know. I'll probably talk about Adafe as well. Shout out to him, 5th-year contract. Or 5th-year contract chosen. I don't know how to word that. That was weird. But running back Chris Collier out of Lock Haven. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I'd ever heard of Lock Haven. But this dude can play. This is my favorite undrafted running back the Baltimore Ravens have ever brought in. 5'11", 203 pounds. Broke the single season record for most rushing yards in the year. This guy is great out of the backfield. You can throw screens to him. You can throw him on wheel routes. You can throw him the deep ball. You can throw him contested catches. He can do it all. He's explosive. He has NFL caliber speed, right? He's not Keaton Mitchell. He's not Justice Hill. But I think he has good enough speed. He's probably late 4.4s, maybe a low 4.5, which is totally fine for a running back, especially when he's the type of player that he really is. When you watch him, you're going to recognize his vision and his cuts. Very quick, very decisive. And I would say, unlike Justice Hill coming out of college, right? Like Justice Hill was very quick and he could get up the field very well. The issue was he would try and go east to west way too much. One thing that I really like about Chris Collier is that when he's running, he typically makes the correct decision in terms of risk versus reward, right? One of the problems Justice Hill had early in his career was sometimes he'd be like, oh, if I, kind of backstep and work around the sideline, maybe I can get a couple extra yards. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Chris Collier, what he does really well is, hey, you know what? Yes, I could maybe get around this guy, but instead I'm going to lower the shoulder and get 2 yards falling forward. Or, hey, I'm going to cut it up the middle, try and split the safeties, but make sure I'm still always getting positive yards out of it. He clearly stands out on the field at all times as the best player, and he's another number 22. That's 3 Ravens that are number 22 with Ali, with Derrick Henry, and obviously Chris Collier. Derrick Henry's going to be number 22, don't worry, but I think this guy's a for sure practice squad player, but I think he could really give Ali a good challenge for a spot on the 53-man roster, especially if Keaton is unable to go. I love this dude's game. This is like I can't wait to watch Ravens preseason football to see how Chris Collier performs against higher level competition, because obviously Lock Haven is not playing the SEC. They're not playing the Pac-12. They're not playing the Mountain West. But when he was playing, no matter who it was against, this dude was lights out. If you haven't already, go check his videos out because he's a lot of fun to watch. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more Daily Ravens content. I'll be talking about the rest of the positions later in the week. And I'll see all of you again tomorrow.